Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for attending this morning. A timely update for Ben Hines, you've just met. Dr. Ben Hines is our head of exploration. Ben is a PhD in geochemistry, which is very useful for the sort of exploration work that we're doing up in the northeast of Victoria at the moment. Okay, the corporate directory looks very much similar to probably the last one that you saw, with the exception of an appointment that we made recently, a fellow called Carl Swenson. Now, Carl is a very experienced, he's 68 years old, very experienced senior geologist. He works with another company, Canadian-based company called Inflection Resources. Inflection Resources have got land up and down the Lachlan Fold belt. Dart, you may or may not know, is located at the very southern end of that Lachlan Fold belt. Carl Swenson is ex-chief geologist at Normandy Mining. Of course, Normandy is no longer with us, but Carl used to run a team of about 200 geologists. He's an exceptionally good and well-regarded geologist. He's very hands-on as a director, and he is effectively our chief technical director. He makes himself available to the rest of our geological team on a regular basis, and he has got particular knowledge and interest in northeast Victoria. Our Granite Flat project, where we're working right now, Carl Swenson cut his teeth, or worked, I should say, in the early 1980s when he was with CRA. Carl was also, as a sort of career highlight, was one of the geologists, one of a small team of geologists that made the Argyle Diamond discovery up in the Kimberley. So he brings tremendous experience, insight. He's highly technically tuned, and we're really grateful to have him on board. So that's about the only change. That is the only change in our board. There haven't been any other changes in our service providers, our corporate metrics. You can see the top left, the stock price is at 11, valuing us, importantly, at an $11 million market cap. I would argue that that we are incredibly undervalued at that market cap, given our prospectivity. The big story for DART is, or the sort of top-down story for DART is that, you know, we've got a very large footprint in the northeast of Victoria. The idea of the genesis, or the origins of DART were all about rediscovering the Victorian historic goldfields of northeast Victoria. Once that started, which as a company began in 2003, such that we have now discovered and I think established a new porphyry province within Australia. So you've got the Lachlan Fold belt up through New South Wales. Importantly, it is the very fertile Macquarie Arc rocks that produce the mineralisation on the east coast of Australia, the rich mineralisation, including mines like Cadia Ridgeway out at Orange, which actually is Australia's biggest gold mine. Those Macquarie Arc rocks, which have produced all of that, extend down south across the border into Victoria, and then swing out to the east. So we're really at the very southern end of that belt, that Lachlan Fold belt of Macquarie Arc rocks. And it is for that reason that we think DART is in a really very good area in terms of prospectivity. So right at the moment, we divide our exploration activities into sort of three areas. One is the historic gold fields, which are, in terms of deposit style, they are orogenic gold. We've got a rather large portfolio of those, but in terms of gold fields, about 9 of them. Within those gold fields, you've got various projects. We have so far identified 7 porphyries, porphyry structures, all of which have tremendous prospectivity. Mount Unicorn is the one where we have spent most of the time and a lot of money. It is probably the 6th largest molybdenum deposit in the world. You may or may not know that molybdenum is a very, it's a volatile price metal. I suppose from an economic point of view, it's not that attractive because it is a byproduct of copper mining very often. And I think 70% of the world's molybdenum comes from as a byproduct of copper mining. So the economics of the underlying commodity have prevented us really from proceeding with that development of that project. But it is nevertheless a large resource. We have a indicated and inferred resource on that of about 200 million tonnes. We are presently working down at Granite Flat, which is the top or the first of those porphyry prospects. Granite Flat is not only a porphyry prospect, it is also a lode style or orogenic gold target for us, which makes it very complex, where you've got the 2 different styles of deposit in the one area, but it's complexity that very often leads to discovery and economic deposits. So the third area of exploration for us, if you like, is, well, we've got it there listed as lithium prospects. And lithium is the dominant element within that, that strategy, if you like. But there is a host of other very precious or, valuable metals, valuable commodities. And it's for that reason that we refer to it more now as technology metals. It includes lithium, tungsten, tin, tantalum, cesium, and niobium. And I might just flick over to Ben. Can you just talk to some of the hits or I guess the reason why we're quite excited about the technology metals sector within DART's portfolio? Can you just talk to the niobium, cesium, tantalum?
Yeah, first and foremost, this is the first lithium pegmatites identified in Eastern Australia. But what's really got us excited is some of the intercepts. So we've got 10-metre chip and channel samples across the central Dorchat range, which is highlighted by a pink circle in the centre of that map. And they're coming back at about 1 10-metre chip at 0.98% lithium oxide and another at 1.57. In addition to that, down south in the Glen Wills project area, we've got a 16-metre chip across quite an extensive dike system, which has come back at greater than 500 ppm cesium and over 100 ppm tantalum. So that's quite a large intersect with quite promising grades. And that's also associated with lithium. In addition, we've spent quite a bit of time travelling through the terrain there and sampling quite a large number of pegmatite dikes, almost 1,000. And we've highlighted quite a strong fractionation trend amongst these pegmatite dikes. So we've highlighted a really strong zone of enriched cesium, tantalum, niobium, and beryllium in the centre of the Dorchat range, which we've recently acquired some LiDAR data over to help us further explore these dikes through the thick vegetation. And we're extending some of the previously unmapped dike systems as well.
Well, that's good. Ben, thanks for that. We'll keep, in the interest of time, we'll keep moving. We can come back to that. We will come back to that strategy towards the end of the presentation. So just straight on to our priority projects at the moment, which are Granite Flat, as most of you would be aware. I think most of you would also be aware of the logistics around it, where it is, that sort of thing. Ben, can I come back to you? Can you just give us a very brief overview of what we're looking for at Granite Flat?
Yeah, so Granite Flat was initially worked by Rio Tinto in the early to mid 80s. And they drilled a number of holes there, deepest hole being about 120 metres, and they got several copper gold targets, or hits, I should say, intercepts. Although they were primarily looking for a massive sulfide type deposit, so these hits were ignored. We've recently come across the data set and used that as a base to expand our own program there. And so this represents the first exploration done on the site in over 30 years. And we've hit it pretty hard and fast. First up with a 42-hole RAB program, drilling to about 50, 60 metres in each hole. And what really gets us going on this, it's got a very large soil geochemical footprint, so about 1.5 kilometres by up to 3 kilometres. And also the wide distribution of mineralised samples and drill holes across the site. So that little map you'll see on the screen there, those orange or orange-yellow circles, they all represent drill hole intercepts from either DART or the earlier Rio Tinto drilling.
Pushing on, so these, in summary, and many of you would have seen these results already, and we're not overly pushing them. It's probably a good opportunity to explain at the moment that sampling and assay testing at the laboratories at the moment is incredibly backed up. In other words, there are significant delays around receipt of testing results. That is, we have just completed about 1,000 metres of RC drilling on Granite Flat. We've received a small trickle of samples back, but we'll be reporting on that probably within the next 3 weeks or so. And that RC program is going to extend probably towards the end of August. We'll be continuing with that program. In all, it's about a 3,500 metre program. We've done 1,000 metres. We have since concluding that we've been busy on the geophysical survey, and what we're hoping from that geophysical survey is that it will provide us with more targeted drill sites, or drill targets, I should say. So there we are. So I think, obviously, and I'm sure you've seen all these, but 19 metres at 9.39 grams per tonne is a pretty spectacular result, intersect, and particularly when you consider it's only 28 metres below surface. And equally on the copper, you've got 28 metres at 0.35, 9 metres at 0.61, including 3 at 1.52 from 28 metres. So some of these holes, and it's worth noting, this is from the RAB project last year, but 33 of them, this is from the top, 33 of the 42 recorded intersects of significant mineralisation. 20 ended, like half of the holes that were put in ended in significant mineralisation. And that's what this latest RC program is about. It's about extending those holes and trying to determine where that mineralisation is petering out. 7 of the holes were mineralised across the entire length of them. So from surface down to like 54 metres mineralisation. That's unusual. You don't get that in many projects around the place. And as Ben said, we are particularly excited by the Granite Flat project. To further complicate matters with Granite Flat, it is not only offering up a lode-style deposit as a lode-style deposit, it also has a high degree of probability at this stage as a porphyry. And Carl Swenson, who's our recently joined director, he seems to be very convinced that it is. Ben, can I just get you to talk to the diagram and the images at the bottom of this page that we're on, and just briefly describing as to why we think this is a copper gold porphyry?
Yeah, so the diagram here is just showing you a typical porphyry model. It's been pretty well developed, particularly over the last 10 or 20 years. And these are describing different characteristics associated within or adjacent to porphyry systems. And we've identified a number of these characteristics at Granite Flat. So we've got your typical disseminated sulfide mineralisation that often occurs within mineralised porphyry bodies. And so that's that large cross section on the left hand side panel. If you're looking at it, we've got several long intersects, 20 to 60 metres of low grade copper and gold mineralisation, which is very indicative of copper gold porphyry systems. And that's associated with fine-grained aplytic porphyries. So we've got that porphyritic texture that further supports that. We see disseminated sulfides within the rock. We see certain alterations, potassic and argillitic alteration. Additionally, we have several drill sites around 2 breccia pipes identified in the field, and these systems are very strongly mineralized, and they show multiple phases of sulfide mineralization, brecciation, and resolidification. And that's shown in photo C down the bottom, as coincident with quite good gold grades, up to 1.5% copper, sort of anywhere from 5 to 10 grams per tonne of silver, and approximately the same values for gold.
Okay, thanks, Ben.
So just a quick question, James or Ben, just so
Yep.
to prove up the porphyry on this area, like what needs to be done? Is it multiple holes, or is it a whole drilling program? Like what would it take to get the market excited to know there's actually a porphyry deposit there?
Well, first step has been our geophysics program, so we're hoping that the geophysics is really going to light it up. So we've already done some preliminary interpretation of aeromagnetic and aerogravity data, or publicly available surveys, and they show a very strongly anomalous region throughout the Granite Flat area, very comparable to Cadia, as a matter of fact. So this IP and MT survey we've just completed yesterday, we're hoping will show porphyry style targets within the profiles. So we're just expecting results back on that within a coming week or two, hopefully. Just depends on our consulting geophysicist. And in following that, deep drilling, particularly the diamond drilling, is going to be the real focus there to target these the porphyry style mineralization.
And Dart has, as you guys probably know, we have our own diamond drill rig that has capacity to drill at least 400 or 500 meters. So we can do that as an in-house thing. We'll be getting onto that as soon as we possibly can. Moving on, so this again, I talked about a preliminary 3,500 meter RC program. We've completed 1,000 meters of that. There's quite a lot more to do. We're hoping probably middle of September to get an RC rig back in there from Macasey Drilling out of Bendigo. We're trying to source all of our support from within Victoria now. We've had issues with the border where border closures, short notice, have meant that guys have left our crews to get home back into New South Wales. And then we've had people prevented from getting from New South Wales into Victoria as well. So right at the moment, the strategy is to try and source as much as we possibly can in regional Victoria. Despite these hiccups, and look, it's just everyone's everyday life, I think, is affected one way or another by COVID. But we have been consistently working in the field, either drilling or on the geophysical program, or we've got a soil sampling program about to start down at Granite Flat as well. So just in quick summary, Granite Flat, we're 1,000 metres into a 3,500 metre program of RC drilling. Beyond that, in terms of RC drilling, there's probably another 3,500 or 4,000 metres to go of drilling. We've got a preliminary 1,000 metre diamond drilling program that started. We would hope to finish that in September or by the end of September. And we've got a lot more diamond drilling beyond that. I'll get to the work schedule. That's one of the last slides here, just to show you what we've got laid out to do going forward. And we've just completed literally yesterday. The guys left the field. The bottom right-hand images on this slide are the guys in the field doing the IP and MT geophysical surveys. Actually, that photograph on the left-hand side, that is Granite Flat. Funnily enough, it doesn't give you much idea of how steep it is. Where that truck is it's relatively flat, actually, but it is definitely on a slope, and the slope is far greater than it appears in that image. Onto Buckland. We're hoping to get back into Buckland next year for some low-impact RC work, RC program. The story on Buckland is that we've so far identified around 17.5 kilometres of anomalous gold at surface through, I think, what was it at the end of the day, Ben? It was like 6.5 or 7,000 soil samples that we took down there.
Yeah. So we've completed quite an extensive soil sampling program along ridge tops throughout the Buckland Valley.
Yeah, and it is highly anomalous. So it's a stacked shear zone, multiple stacks within the zone, a long strike, and it's very, how would you describe it? It's all very much aligned along a particular direction on the compass coordinates. And
so it shows a strong lineation.
Yeah. All the way along, we get these repeating super high grade pods of gold, and out from those super high grade pods of gold, we're getting invisible gold at surface. The invisible gold is very valuable and points towards potentially an extremely large scale gold deposit. Okay. So that's Buckland, and these are the 2020 drill highlights that we did from a RAB program. There's some very encouraging results there. I think the comment I'd make about Buckland is that we know that the mineralisation is going to depth. That's a very important part of it. We can use the extremely steep topography and terrain in that area to relatively cheaply understand the extent of mineralisation, and I think that's what we're intending to do early next year, Ben.
Yeah. So we're seeing mineralisation at surface, and we would be looking at a follow-up program at this particular site, Fairleys. We'd be looking at a deeper diamond drill program, possibly coupled with some geophysics to test the depth extent.
Yeah.
That said, it has been tested already. We've had drill holes down to 229 metres there, which have shown mineralisation throughout. Yeah,
and you can see on that diagram that a lot of the mineralisation remains open. That's obviously an important part too. Rushworth Gold Project, I'm not going to spend much time on it. It's out in sort of central northern Victoria. It's a nuggety style deposit. It's probably a high risk, high return style of deposit. Effectively, we're right in the middle of the historic Rushworth gold field there. We would willingly joint venture this project under reasonable terms. We are surrounded by some interesting neighbours. We've got Newmont to the east, to the west. We've got Chalice to the north. You can see on that top diagram, there's Dart's footprint in the red. Nagambie, or who are now Mawson, have all that ground to the north and out to the east and to the south. And I suppose it's interesting in a sense in terms of neurology anyway. It is, 45 k's from the Fosterville mine. It is a different geology to Fosterville. Interestingly, our Buckland project shares more similar characteristics with Fosterville than anything else we have. We have talked a little bit about porphyries already, so I won't dwell on it, but they are the porphyry targets that we have within our footprint at the moment. I guess most important to us right now is Granite Flat. Beyond that, Empress and Granite Flat and Empress South, which are pretty much part of the same area. Beyond that, Stacey's and Gentle Annie are very interesting. They're up further to the northeast near a town called Corryong, not far from the Mount Unicorn porphyry. We'd love to do some deep drilling into that, but it's you can only do so many things. You can only focus on so many things, and for the time being, we're just going to have to ignore it, but we will endeavour to get up there and do some drilling next year, I think. To the technology metals. Now, Dart, as Ben mentioned earlier, discovered the first hard rock lithium on the east coast of Australia in 2016. It is, I guess the pegmatite swarm that we're referring to here, which originally was contained within a 60 by 20 kilometre corridor. We've narrowed that in based on fractionation, but it's more than lithium. I mean, lithium is great, obviously. It's a very high in demand metal at the moment with the electrification, but there are a lot of other technology metals present within these pegmatites. Tin, it is an old historic tin field through the Mitamita area, through this corridor that we're exploring at the moment, with principally for lithium, but also high levels. We've had some big hits of tantalum, cesium, niobium. We've got tungsten in a sort of another part of or another work area, as we call it. And we've also had some hits on rare earth elements, which require further investigation. I think the idea, Ben, is to put some holes with the diamond rig through some of these, right?
Yeah. So we've identified a number of mineralised targets, and the next step in working these up would be to drill them. Yeah.
There are the recently conducted LiDAR survey was very, very important for the pegmatite exploration strategy. It uncovered extensions to previously unknown pegmatites, known pegmatites, but we discovered extensions to those that we already knew, which has been really encouraging. I think from if you're thinking about this as to whether the existence of a number of different lithium minerals, so we've so far seen petalite, which is a very pure lithium mineral and used in mainly, or lithium that is extracted from petalite is often used in glass. It's a high purity lithium, glass and grease. And then we have spodumene behind the petalite. We have lepidolite down in the south, mainly down near Glen Wills, and that is also associated with amblygonite, which interestingly, theoretically, can carry more lithium than any of the other lithium minerals, up to around 10%. So what we might do is flick through this. This is exactly where I wanted to get to. The scheduled works. Ben, do you want to do a real quick summary of the remainder of this year, then talk to first half of 2022? We're talking calendar years here, not financial years. Do you want to walk through that, Ben?
Yeah. So at the moment at Granite Flat, we've just finished up the geophysical survey, and we're currently starting on the data interpretation and working out where that leads us in terms of identifying further drill targets. We're also about to get back on track with our low impact diamond drilling program. So we'll get the diamond rig back out in the field after a little bit of maintenance work, get that going again, start looking at some deeper holes and testing some of these prospective porphyry targets. And within a month or two, we'll be looking at resuming the RC drilling program to chase up some additional results, particularly in the southwest of the area, which is yet to be re-drilled since Rio Tinto was in 30 years ago.
Actually, Ben, can I just jump in there too? We managed to salvage, believe it or not, a whole bunch of drill core that had been done by CRA or Perseverance back in the late 80s, early 90s. We managed to get our hands on this drill core, and it hasn't been sampled. And we're intending to process that core and actually get it assayed as well. We know where it's come from. We've got all the holes and all the data. In fact, we received all the data originally in analog format. We've had to digitize the whole lot. And now we're sending some of that off for sampling. So there is potentially some results to come from that too, right?
Yeah, it's a great example of sort of low effort, maximum reward. And actually on that note, our recent revision of the airborne magnetic and geophysical data sets has sort of indicated that the footprint of the area may be much larger than we initially believed. So we're resuming a soil sampling program to the north of the area to test the geophysical anomaly and see if that footprint is actually as large as the geophysics would suggest.
Yeah.
Following on from that, we're in a position where we can hit the Glen Wells lithium pegmatites pretty easily with the drill rig. Our main prospective target down there, the Blue Jacket Dyke, has a road going across the top, which means we can put in what we call a low impact work plan. It can be enacted within 1 to 2 weeks, and we can drill it very easily. And so that's enticing to us because we've had a number of chip samples there. The most promising one was 16 meters at 530 ppm cesium, 108 ppm tantalum, and 0.5% of lithium oxide.
In terms of economic or anomalous readings on cesium, Ben, it's about 100, right?
Yeah, anything over 100, and we're sort of starting to get interested. So that's certainly looking very interesting to us. And the other promising thing about this Blue Jacket Dyke is it appears to have a strike length over 1 kilometre. It's a little bit potty along that distribution, but it seems to be very consistently mappable along a shear zone. And so to further chase that up, we'll also be looking to fly some LiDAR to help map out these dikes in detail and get some better ideas of the true extent of these dike systems in the Glen Wells area, much like we've done at Estale already.
Yeah.
So yeah, leading on from that, the LiDAR coverage across Estale has highlighted some zones that we've previously sampled, particularly what we call the Gosport dike system, which shows spodumene mineralisation. I think off the top of my head, lithium chip samples over 4 or 5 meters at 1.4% lithium oxide.
Yeah.
Heading into the first half of 2022, we'd be looking at chasing up or resuming work on the Buckland orogenic gold program, starting with a low impact drill survey across existing roads in the southern end of the valley across 2 particularly strongly mineralised systems. The first being this, what we call the Samson mine, where we've had a chip sample at 60 grams across the metre. This is gold, 60 grams per tonne gold. And across the Nude Chum and Red Jacket system in the very southern end of the valley, where we've had, again, a chip sample at 150 grams per tonne over just under a metre, over about 0.8 metres. And then large, long intercepts, 12 to 20 metres at around 1 to 2 grams per tonne. And what's interesting about this is it's right adjacent to a small porphyry intrusion, so molybdenum copper porphyry. Following on from that, I mentioned earlier that the next step in working up the Estale lithium pegmatites is going to be drilling them. So we'd be looking at enacting an RC drilling program. Additionally, we didn't cover it earlier, but we have a small mining lease across a project called Mountain View, just south of Corryong. And it currently has a resource across it, I think, for 25,000 ounces of gold. And we believe that, again, a very potty style of mineralisation. We've got 5 very strong soil arsenic anomalies adjacent to it. So we are looking at drilling those out and extending that resource. Furthermore, back to pegmatites, we've got a licence application across Walwa, right on the Victoria border. And that's a tin tantalum project that's mined up until the 1970s and already has a number of drill holes in it. I think something on the order of 112 drill holes in it, which show multiple repeated levels of tin tantalum mineralisation in pegmatite dikes. So we will be looking at picking up that project and adding our own flavour to it.
We actually, Ben and I, together not long ago, Ben, we took some chip samples up there, right, that really, you know, showed that we're on the money with that. We got some results on that, didn't we?
Yeah, we do. So we've got, I think, up to 10 metres at 0.5% tin was the highlight. We only collected 10 samples. It was a preliminary sampling run just to see what we're in for.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at covering that in greater detail in the coming year.
Yeah, and look, you know, tin is not to be dismissed. Trading between 34 and 35,000 US dollars a tonne at the moment. You know, if you take 10% of that as being a price that was back in the 70s, there's no at $3,500 a tonne. I don't think the tin price was anywhere near that in those days. May explain why they didn't continue. A lot of these mines shuttered for various reasons, whether they run out of mineralisation or whatever, but often it's the commodity price itself. And so what we'd be hoping for in an ideal world is, you know, extended mineralization, recoverable tin, you know, whilst the prices are holding up very high. Ben, I think the second half, I think people can probably read that for themselves, and I'll cover off these next few slides, which are effectively graphics on our projects and the stage at which each of them are in terms of the exploration pipeline. So they're the tech metals. You've got across the top there the different stages at which they are. So surface sampling, then you get to, if you look at this, you'll see the target testing. So there's Eagle and Holloway, both of which we actually put a drill hole into, but it's very limited drilling, and it's what we need to get back there and do a lot more close drilling, I suppose, because these dikes are zoned. You can put a hole straight through one and not get any lithium. You can put a hole through one, you know, 10 centimeters to the right, and you'll get mineralization through the whole thing, or you'll get lithium hits through the whole thing. So we've got a lot more drill testing to do on those, and you would have seen that in the schedule of work. So they're the porphyries in terms of their, you know, positions, so the different targets and their positions in the pipeline. You'll note there Mount Unicorn out to the right, which is a defined target. Copper Quarry and Morgan, there's been a bit of drilling on, but the other porphyries require extensive drilling. And here's the orogenic gold. And so Mountain View, which Ben just mentioned, is the furthest to the right. So there is a defined resource on that. It's small, but what we're hoping is that it's repeating along strike to the north from the existing pit. There was a bulk sample done on that in 1994. There was further drilling and resource definition work done a bit later on from then. So we want to go back, revisit that, test along strike. We've fairly recently expanded the size of the license, and we think that the high-grade pod is repeating along strike to the north. We need to test it. So that's the pipeline of orogenic gold projects. There's a tenement status and a summary.